Hi everyone, Brittany here. I just want to give you a quick intro to this week's video. This week we have Ronnie and Kyle, and they're going to be going over some of the applications and the way that FSG can help you when it comes to implementing all of the things that you've heard and strategies you've heard that retirees can use over this last month. So make sure to tune in. As always, stay tuned until the end for a chance to win some FSG gear, and I hope you enjoy.
Hey everyone, it's Kyle and Ronnie here. We're here to kind of wrap up our series on the retiree, and really today what we're looking to do is we really want to illustrate the difference between us and other firms. I mean, clients have that expectation when they walk into the office. Most oftentimes they've never met with anybody, right?
Absolutely.
So realistically, Ronnie, how are we different than other firms?
Yeah.
How are we different than other advisors?
Well, and I think that there's really three areas, right, that we talk about. The first is understanding the difference between retirement and the working years, right? And we refer to that as the accumulation phase and the distribution phase.
The book word is accumulation and distribution.
Absolutely, right? And then I think the second piece is an absolute commitment to service, right? And making sure that what we understand is life can throw curveballs. Right, and it seems that curveballs tend to get thrown more when you're retired as you get older, whether it's medical expenses or those type of things. And then I think the third is just our responsibility as an advisory group, and talking a little bit more in detail about fiduciary responsibility and what that looks like and why that's important.
Yeah, those are really three key points that we focus on, that we strive on, as an office and as a firm. So, Ronnie, I know you've told me stories before. You have clients that walk into your office all the time, that they come in, they've been working with an advisor for years, and for whatever reason, what you have to say to them, the light bulb just turns on.
Absolutely.
Really what we're talking about is the difference between accumulation and distribution.
Absolutely.
But can you explain that, and let's dive a little bit further into that?
Yeah, so I think I'd start by saying, in educating a client, which I think is what we're always trying to do, right? And getting them to understand the generalities of finance, not what we're about or what they should do because we think it's the best direction, but really empowering them with understanding, right? So one of the things that we talk about is really identifying accumulation versus distribution, right? And here's the reality. Most people's experience in finance is you go to meet with somebody, they look at your stuff, they put some colored pie charts up that look real nice, convince this person they're going to make more money than the last guy, use big words, confuse you, they must know what they're talking about, and then you make that transition. And for most of the people I've worked with, that seems to be the experience. And there's a lot of transition and moving from person to person. And so really, it's really getting them to understand that when you're working and you're accumulating, that's a very different environment than when you move into retirement, right?
Yeah,
and we talk, as an example, right? You look at the retirement accounts that you have, whether a 401k is an example, right? You have two areas that are applying money into those accounts: your contributions, and if you work for a company that's matching, their contributions, right? You really only have one place for that money to come out while you're working, right? And it's if the market loses. When you go to retire, right, you no longer have areas where money is going in, right? You have two areas now where money is coming out.
It's less margin of error.
Exactly.
Essentially.
And I think people, unfortunately, get into this phase of almost realizing that they're not able to make as much money because they don't realize why they're working, that they're putting that money in. Right. So there are things like, when we take money, do we owe taxes? Things like inflation, right? I tell my clients, go out to lunch, get a salad and a water. It's $14, right? I mean, inflation is a reality. It's here, and it's effective to how much money you have and how much money you're going to have over time. So it's inflation, it's taxes, it's market losses. It's all those different things that we have to be mindful of when we're now retired and taking money from our accounts. And you have to make sure that you understand it and that you're with somebody as a professional that understands those things.
Well, sure. And I mean, I've worked with clients who've had different advisors their entire lives, and for whatever reason, coming in and sitting down with us, it just clicked.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a distinct difference between accumulation or your working years.
Absolutely.
And distribution or your retirement years, right?
Absolutely.
All right, it is time to interrupt Ronnie and Kyle with this week's trivia question. This week's question is, according to USA Today, what is the biggest stressor for retirees? Is it A, health worries, B, relationship issues, C, caregiving, or D, financial concerns? Stay tuned to find your answer.
So let's talk a little bit about our office and Financial Strategies Group, the commitment to service and our clients.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how that breaks down. Right.
Yeah, I think and we talked a little bit about this, right? It's being in a situation where there has to be a process in which you can approach somebody and have a conversation, right? And I think that's what it really boils down to. I mean, our process is simple. You call our office. You're going to get several wonderful people that we have.
We're here 8 to 5 every day.
They're going to take care of you, and ultimately the idea, I think, really is a commitment to getting to know you. One of the things that we talk about is your statements is ink on paper, right? And that's what it is. That doesn't tell us your story, right? It doesn't tell us who you are, what your objectives are, and recognizing that no matter who I'm sitting with, no matter who you're sitting with, they're unique. Right?
It's funny because I say this to my clients all the time, and this is not something new for me because you've heard me say it, is I got to like you and you got to like me.
Absolutely.
Because if things change in your life, and I should know about it, and you don't want to pick up the phone call to call me, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
Vice versa, if I need to call you and I cringe at that thought, that's not a good fit.
Right.
So really, our first meeting is we're just going to sit down and get to know you.
Absolutely.
Figure out whether or not we're going to be a good fit, whether we can help you, what kind of value we can provide for you and your family.
Sure.
Or your business.
Sure.
Right?
Well, and I think a lot of it boils down to that first step, which why we talk about it is so crucial, right? Being able to identify who you are, right? So that whatever situation comes down the pipe, it's tailored and it fits your needs, and most importantly, that you understand it, right?
Yeah, education.
Absolutely. And I think that moves into that second phase, right? We're going to spend significant time analyzing where your current situation is at, now that we've learned who you are and what your objectives are, right?
Well, and putting it in simplified terms.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing, is taking something complex and making it simple and easy to understand.
Absolutely.
And I think our office specifically, we have a commitment to education as well. We have 4 CFPs, we have 3 CHFCs that are on staff. I know Bryce has his Chartered Investment Management designation. Brandon's a master's as well. I know we're all continuing to strive to be better for our clients.
Yep.
It is time for the answer to your trivia question. This week's trivia question was, according to USA Today, what is the biggest stressor for retirees? A, health worries, B, relationship issues, C, caregiving, or D, financial concerns? The answer is, in fact, D, financial concerns. Stay tuned and let Ronnie and Kyle assist you in preventing that same worry that so many retirees have.
The biggest thing that you hear about in the financial service industry is people that feel like they got due.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the good word here that more people are becoming more and more aware of is fiduciary.
Yeah.
So what is fiduciary?
Yeah, so I think the best way to really describe that is a comparing and contrasting, right? So kind of foundationally from an industry standpoint, the standard, right, of what we as advisors are kind of held to with our clients is always been suitability, right? And we understand suitability to be really just in that moment, strategies and ideas that are being implemented fit that dynamic,
Sure,
right? Well,
sure.
what do we know? Life is going to change.
Always.
Things are going to happen, right? You're going to lose a job. You're going to get a divorce. There's going to be disability. There's going to be long-term care. There's going to be all sorts of things that come down the pipe that you may not be expecting. Yep. And oftentimes, because those things are positioned and then never properly serviced, oftentimes you find people looking at something that they invested in years prior and it's no longer fit. And they don't know, they don't remember why they did it or who did it, et cetera. And I think that's what most people's experience are, where the fiduciary then becomes personally liable and responsible for looking out for the client's best interest.
Yeah, and doing what's best for our clients.
And we've never been afraid of that.
No.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, what we realize is our process and how you cover that in dealing with your client is empowering clients with education, having clients that understand what they have and why they have it, right? And I think the second thing is regular conversations, right? We talk about this all the time. what is the end game for us? It's building a relationship.
Yep.
It's building a long-term sustainable relationship. And in order to do that, what do we understand is the key to a good relationship?
Trust.
Communication.
Trust,
Communication and trust.
Yep.
Right? And those are the two pieces. So if I'm not reaching out to the people I'm working with and having a conversation with them on a regular basis, I'm not living up to that commitment to that relationship, right? And making sure that we're having conversations on a regular basis so that the people that we're working with understand where they're at and why they're there.
Yeah. You know, one of the biggest things, I mean, we talk about this on a day-to-day basis, but one of the biggest things that I think I've learned throughout this whole process when we really sit down and we break down, you know, the retiree phase of people's lives is that, you know, realistically, the sooner you come in, the better off you're going to be. Because how many issues did we go through in this series where if we had time, we could have solved a lot of these problems and a lot of these issues.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the biggest thing for me in taking away from this is, you know, as a retiree, this is quite possibly these are the golden years. This is what you worked your entire life for. So why at that point are you just now seeking out an advisor?
Yeah.
When it takes years, just like we know, it takes years to build that trust.
Right.
So how do you know somebody is there in your best interest if you just met them last week?
Absolutely. Well, and you and I both know the irony of all that is, you know, the essence of success in building up for retirement is time.
Yep.
Right? The more time you give yourself, the more likely you'll achieve those objectives, right?
Success.
So, you know, I think to wrap up, you know, I think we covered really three areas, right? The first is being educated to understand the massive differences between working and accumulating and distribution and retirement, right? And we talked about those details. You know, we talked about why we're different in our process, right? Knowing that when you go through our process, you will leave with value, right? Whether you work with us or not, right? You will leave with a clear value of understanding where you're at and your expectations of where you're headed, right? And then I think the last piece in talking about fiduciary is really the importance of understanding who are you working with, right? What are their interests? What are they looking to try to accomplish and achieve in building a relationship with you, right? Yeah. So, you know, hopefully this was helpful. You know, we look to just try to educate people as much as possible.
This has been enjoyable series to talk about.
Absolutely.
We really go over it. I mean, you know, we deal with it on a day-to-day, but when you sit down and you start dissecting it, it's
and been, you know, and we talk about this throughout the series. Retirement for most people is unachievable, and that fear drives a lot of frustration and concern as to whether or not they'll ever be able to retire, right? And so our goal is to help those dreams become a reality for people, and that's part of our goal here is to educate. So we hope that you enjoyed the series. Take a look at the articles that support some of the things that we've talked about. This is Kyle Cooper and Ronnie Thompson coming to you from Financial Strategies Group and FSG TV. Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for spending some time with Ronnie and Kyle today as they recapped our series on the retiree. Please make sure to send us an email at contact@fsgmichigan.net with the biggest takeaway you have from this episode, and it will automatically enter you into a drawing to win some FSG gear. And if you have more questions, don't hesitate to give us a call, 800-804-0420. Any of our guys will be able to help you. Thank you, and make sure you stay tuned for our next series.